This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 353 for the week of January 12th, 2014. What up, heyoes? Welcome to Kanzenshuu,
the podcast,
an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site,
Kanzenshuu.
That's right, we cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit, entertaining. Julian, good to have you back with us, sir.
It's good to be back.
We got you over there in Japan, and just myself, Mike VegettoEX. Here we are, a little bit into 2014. It is time to do the big recap, the big predictions check-in, the big new predictions makings episode. It's a little bit scaled back. Last year, we had myself, we had you, we had Mary, and we had Heath.
Yes.
We're at 50%.
Yeah, well, Heath's phone is broken, so we don't even know if he knows that we're recording.
I sent him an email. Granted, it was late last night, so not much time to prepare. And Mary has other stuff going on right now. She could not join us, so we are moving on ahead because we need to do so. Julian, here we are, 2014. Are you ready for this kind of episode, man?
I guess. I mean, wow. 2013. That was a year.
That was, I've said this, probably one of the biggest years for the Dragon Ball franchise ever in its entire history, dating back to its beginning at the end of 1984. So, wow. All right, Julian, so we're going to, in case you don't know, if this is your first time doing one of these big year-end recap episodes, lots of podcasts do this. We've been doing it for years as well. We're going to hit up some of the biggest news stories of the previous year. That was 2013. Every year we make predictions for the new year. So we're going to check in on our exact predictions from a year ago, see how we did, and then we will make new ones for the next year. That's our main topic, our main beef meat of the episode. So Julian, we do have a little bit of news to catch up on before we head into last year's news. That makes sense. So let's do that real quick.
All right.
Well, Julian, why don't you get me started here a little bit? You've had family over there. I know you're a little bit behind on stuff. Psycho Jump, yes. That came out not quite 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago now at this point. There are new tidbits in here. Why don't we start first with the Dragon Ball GT anime comic version? Now, we talked about this last month, so about a month and a half ago when that issue came. What issue is it right now? Is this the February issue that we're looking at?
The February issue. So generally, when the Jump branded magazines come out, if they're released in the beginning of the month, they're labeled with the next month, and if they're released towards the end of the month, they're labeled with 2 months after. So gotcha. It's very confusing.
All right. So 2 issues ago, not the current one that's out, but the one before that, they started up the Dragon Ball GT anime comics. Now, Julian, that started very late into the series. It started with the Evil Dragon arc, right?
Yeah. So they're just gathering, well, they have gathered the Dragon Balls to wish back everything the way it was before Super Number 17 went on a rampage. It's 48-ish of the series, I think, 47?
Yeah, sure.
Does that right?
Yeah, so this next issue has another chapter of the same thing. Now, it's in color, but it's kind of like a reduced color palette. It's like, It's not quite that red scale thing either. It's just kind of like shitty color, shitty paper.
Yeah, well, it's on the cheaper paper, not the glossy paper that Dragon Ball ST is usually printed on. And it's, I guess you could call it the limited color palette, the same way that Dragon Ball was occasionally done. Except in this case, they're obviously reducing a full color TV show down to these colors, and it doesn't look that great, but
no, and it feels very different. I know it probably is that exact same scheme, but it feels so different because you know it's coming from, I mean, GT had a pretty rich color palette, so
yeah,
there you go. All right, so that is in there. It's, a few pages. We're still doing early Evil Dragon stuff. This is, I think it's just the curse of Episode of Bardock. If you remember, when the re-release of Episode of Bardock, all 3 parts are printed in that V-Jump issue. I let it sit on my kitchen table for days. I didn't even open it. Oh, by the way, there's 2 new pages in this. Oh crap, I never even bothered to open it and look. Julian, the curse of Bardock rears its ugly head once again. Because this issue of Psycho Jump, why don't you tell us what's going on with Bardock here?
So it's announced a couple of things that are coming up. So presumably with the second Jakuryu mission, or Evil Dragon mission of Dragon Ball Heroes, the card-based arcade game, there's going to be, well, Bardock is going to be involved in some capacity. Again, we've got a Bardock bonus card coming with the next issue, the March issue, which is coming out in February of Saikyo Jump, along with a reprint of the episode of Bardock, but they're advertising it as a Super Kanzenban, or complete or perfect edition. What does this mean? Oh, we don't know. Does it mean there will be parts that are redrawn? Does it mean there will be even more new pages? Or does it just mean they're looking for a way to market this? We don't know. But time will tell.
I know Jake was just talking about this on the forum too. So for some of the translated quotes, the Warrior of Rage, that's the quote there, is getting a, here's the next quote, further super evolution, ending the quote there, in the face of Frieza's clan. So this sounds like, this is what Jake said, I agree, a new power-up for Bardock, in addition to the Super Saiyan transformation that we got via episode of Bardock.
Yes.
All those months, years ago at this point.
That sounds to me like it's probably in something about Dragon Ball Heroes.
You think it's Dragon Ball Heroes? All right, because I'm gonna save this for predictions, because I got something tied in here that I've already predicted on the show before. But go ahead.
So my feeling is that they're probably going to do the same sort of Super Saiyan Bardock thing they did with, I think, the 5th iteration of Dragon Ball Heroes way back in, 2011?
Uh-huh.
It'll be, I don't know, Super Saiyan 3 or something like that. But the question is, are they going to tie it in with episode of Bardock? That's it, to my mind, the big question.
Right. Well, there's nothing, if you look at episode of Bardock as a complete product, whether it's the manga or the animated adaptation, we've seen everything there is to see. He doesn't get anything else in episode of Bardock that they could tie back. I'm pretty sure I've seen footage. This is me diving into a bunch of threads, a bunch of videos, because we do know that Bardock is now in Zenkai Battle Royale, which is the Japanese arcade-only multiplayer brawler fighting game. I'm pretty sure one of his major attacks there in his Super Saiyan form, I guess let's just call it the Meteor attack or Meteor attack, because I'm not quite sure what it's called over in the game, but it's the specific combo that he used on Chilled in episode of Bardock. So that's a great nod to the animated material. But that's just a series of attacks, like the twirl and the throw and that kind of stuff. There's no transformation to give him from episode of Bardock. This would have to be a new thing. So what do you think, man? What is Bardock getting here? I have thoughts.
It's not Super Saiyan God, is it?
Hold on to that. Let's remember that for predictions later on. So, and then we're also going to get something else from Oishi in this next issue. Very unclear whether it's more episode of Bardock material, like will she just write even more new pages to the end of it, kind of like an epilogue almost, or a prequel to something else. We don't know.
Yes.
So we'll all be ordering.
Yes, she's already doing the spine images for every issue of Saikyo Jump. Label 2014. So the first one was Goku in his pod. The second one is Goku in his Saiyan armor with Son Gohan, the elder one. So we'll see how it goes from there. It's supposed to depict the growth of Goku over his life. Be interesting to see where she takes it. She's already given it a nod to Jocko right there. So
Right. Huh. All right. So I think that's what we've seen coming our way in Saikyo Jump. The next issue will be out in 2-ish, a little bit. No, 3-ish weeks, something like that, at the beginning of the month, right?
Yeah, I feel very behind right now just because I haven't really been able to do anything while my parents were here because, I do most of my stuff at night when my children are asleep, and I couldn't use the kotatsu, the little heated table, while they were here, which means I'd be really cold.
So instead of entertaining your kids, you were entertaining your parents. And
yes.
Well, all right. So you're behind. We'll all catch up. The only other news story I guess we can toss out there, this I think broke just after we recorded the last podcast episode, and that's Madman has picked up Funimation's Dragon Ball Z Blu-rays, the new ones, the season sets. They'll be putting those out in Australia in 2014, coming in April. So that's one of those it is what it is bits of news. So Julian, you ready to turn it over to the previous year in terms of news now?
Yes.
Okay. What we've traditionally done here on the podcast each year is sometimes we literally run through all the major news stories every month of the year. We can't do that with 2013. Julian, I'm looking at the news that we've had January 2014, and we've had some light weeks. You go back a year ago, we were posting multiple newses multiple days in a row. Battle of Gods was only a couple months out. It was insane.
Yeah. I mean, it was literally multiple updates practically every day. You'd be setting up things for me to look at when I was awake, and I'd be translating things for you while you were off doing other things. And we just had this synergy going where it was round the clock, really.
It was a 24-hour cycle.
This was like a third job. I mean, I already have a full-time job. I have 2 children, which the second one was added in December of 2012.
Right. So just in time for Battle of Gods.
Yes. So now I had a third full-time job on top of those 2 things. It was a wonderful sort of hell.
So we cannot do that this year. We would be here for hours. I feel like a lot of you at this point, if you're listening, lived through it, whether it was through the podcast or reading the website. I know Battle of Gods brought a lot of new people in to the site and to the fandom, or back to the fandom is probably a better way to describe it. So you've probably been keeping up with a lot of that stuff over the last year. So what I've decided we're going to do instead is, Julian, you and I are going to talk about our 3, and we could define this any way we want, whether it was our 3 favorite news stories, what we thought were the 3 most important news stories, the most impactful, significant news stories. And that's how we're going to break down 2013 for ourselves. And then we're going to check in on everyone's predictions from a year ago. We have myself, we have you, we have Heath, we have Mary, all of those predictions. And then Julian, you and I will make new predictions for 2014. I did put the ask out on Twitter. We have a bunch of predictions from all you folks as well. So we have a fun-filled topic here. Julian, I think we'll kind of flip back and forth with kind of recaps of our favorite, whatever, however you're going to define it, news stories of the year. Why don't you get us going? If you have an order, I guess let's go in least to most important, again, however you're defining it. So get us going with your number 3.
These are not necessarily all going to be individual news stories, but just because of the nature of the way news came out.
You know what? That's fine, because I'll give you kind of my first runner-up. If I was going to have a number 4, it kind of ties in with that. And that was all the Battle of Gods tie-in merchandise. So things like the fries and the cola, all those various things that didn't quite make what I thought was important. And there were so many of them. So that's kind of where I was coming from on multiple stories. But go ahead, take it away.
So first up, the deluge of new and new-ish books.
Books.
So let's take a list. We've got 4 Kanzenshuu volumes, which repurpose old Kanzenshuu information and also incorporate some new material.
Yep, it did.
We've got the Chogashu, the Super Art Collection, which is like a charged up version of Daizenshu Volume 1, which is a gigantic art book.
Definitely one of the best purchases, best releases for the entire franchise last year, the Chogashu. Definitely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
We've got the full color comics, 3 volumes for the Cyan arc and 5 volumes for the Frieza arc.
That's right. I kind of forget about those.
We've got the animation comics for Battle of Gods.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the various sort of individual releases like the theatrical pamphlet, the official movie guide, and the thing that you could only get by going to the exhibit that traveled from Tokyo to Osaka to Nagoya.
You're talking about the horizontal yellow cover one?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, very good. I am so appreciative that you got me one. Julian, you're talking about animation comics. Don't forget about the re-release of DBZ Movie 8, the film anime comic.
That's true. And I did check it out. It was a thing. It did not have any new material apart from the cover. So, yeah, I mean, that is a huge number of new releases for a single year. And they almost all of them tried to tie into Battle of Gods in some way. Even the full-color comics had these little Q&As, and the things that Akira Toriyama made to answer were usually, well, not consistently, but in some way vaguely related to Battle of Gods. Like how Kaio's planet was destroyed, which is kind of at odds with the explanation that's in the movie, but yeah. So anyway, it was a huge amount of stuff for me to translate. I
actually have 2 others to throw into the mix. One is a physical book release, and one is not, and maybe it'll come up on someone's list. I don't know. Volume 1 of Dragon Ball SD. Sure, it was a recollection of previously published stuff, but I don't think any of us were sure we were going to see a collected release. That did come out. That was in April. And then there was Jocko. It was in Weekly Jump.
Oh, yes. So you have Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, which was supposed to get a Tankobon volume already, but
should be out,
pushed back to April.
Right.
As far as we know.
Right.
So there's all of this stuff, and almost all of it in some way ties back to the movie that came out on March 30th, and we'll get there. But it was this tremendous deluge of information, and we've tried to cover as much of it as possible, and we're still not done because there's just so much. It's literally like we've gotten years upon years worth of pent-up stuff in one massive downpour, I guess, if you're going to go with a rain metaphor. So we have a massive backlog, and we're trying to tackle things from, the past 30 years, because Kanzenshuu was founded with the idea that we would try to, have original translations and interviews with the author, and, well, not original in the sense of we've conducted them, but original translations of stuff that nobody's ever seen in English. Yeah. So we're still trying to do that, but they added a huge amount of stuff to our plate.
One step forward, 2 steps backwards, constantly.
Right.
All right. I think you're going to be really surprised with my number 3. And this is not a favorite. It's not as significant. It's not quite an ironic number 3 either. I want to toss out there the super collaboration special, Toriko, One Piece, and Dragon Ball Z, that aired April 7th. Over in Japan. So it was about a week after Battle of Gods came out. And I think this is significant because no one's talking about it at all. At all. Barely anyone talked about it when it aired, and I feel like fandom has completely forgotten that this thing existed. We didn't even, here at Kanzenshuu, we didn't even bother getting around to doing a formal review of it after it aired. Julian, you live in Japan, you watched it, you were right there. We didn't get around to talking about it, and I think at this point our excuse is waiting for the home release, if there will be one, because the Toriko, One Piece, just the 2, did get a home release eventually.
I think that part of it has to do with the fact that the Toriko anime doesn't really have a presence outside of Japan. Obviously, the manga is serialized in the English Weekly Shonen Jump, which is released digitally by Viz.
Right.
But the anime isn't really a thing, and by what a lot of fans tell us, it's not that great, especially compared to the source material.
Funimation has it, they're streaming it, and it sounded to me, on the outside, having never read it, never really seen it, it sounds like the classic example of they want it to be big and it just will not catch on.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in Toei's fiscal reports every quarter, every year. They're like, Toriko, come on. Will it please stick?
Hasn't.
No.
Apparently, they gave all their good animators to the Toriko movie, and it still did much more poorly than Dragon Ball. So,
yep. All right. So this was a 2-part special. Part 1 was Run, Strongest Team, Toriko, Luffy, and Goku. And then part 2 was the mightiest collaboration in history versus the gluttonous man of the sea. It was these 3 series that crossed over. It was fun. It was a thing.
Yes.
I hate to wrap it up with that phrase, but it sure was a thing.
The animation was pretty cheap, and Battle of Gods animation was okay, but not spectacular. But this was... There's a lot of still pans and a lot of lazy character designs, so... I don't know. All
right, well, that's fine. I got nothing else to say about this other than the lols no one remembers. So take it away. Yes. Let's get into your number 2 here.
The Boo arc of Dragon Ball Kai continues to be accidentally revealed by multiple leaks on both sides of the Pacific, and yet it continues to be not officially
Julian,
announced.
We have 2 levels of Kai vaporware. The Boo arc is, I can independently confirm firsthand that this thing exists. You can as well.
Yes.
On the other hand, the next level up of total lols worthy is the supposed ocean-produced dub of Dragon Ball Kai, which no one can really independently confirm truly exists. Hysterical, but please, the Boo arc of Kai.
We've got multiple confirmations from Mayumi Tanaka, who was apparently not given any kind of formal reprimand in the face of her revealing it previously on her blog. So she's done multiple pictures. We've had Toshio Furukawa, the voice of Piccolo, who's much more coy, but yet he's posted pictures with the other Dragon Ball cast members who happen to be people who show up in the Boo arc, including, for example, the audio producer for Dragon Ball Kai, and the voice of Boo, the voice of Kaioshin, everybody who appears in that arc. We've had voice actors in the US confirming that it exists, and even, I can't remember that they've either been working on it or they're planning to get started on it very soon, but then have to sort of walk it back after their employers get wind of what they've been saying on social media.
Julian, it sounds to me, if I had to guess, Funimation wanted this to be out by now, and they're working on it. They are ready to go. Something is holding this up for some reason, somehow, and every second that they're ready to be like, yeah, here, never mind.
Yes. So there's that. And I think one of the theories going around is that Toriko is actually doing so poorly, or at least so far below what Toei Animation's expectations were of it, that it's either going to go on hiatus or perhaps be cancelled entirely, and that in an effort to drive up ratings, they'll actually put the Buu arc of Kai on TV in Japan after all, in the same time slot as before. So basically, back
the middling
to square
ratings
one.
of Kai sound like a better idea to Toei than keeping Toriko, maybe.
So going right back to where we were before the earthquake.
I mean, this is all rumor and speculation, but it's one of those where there's smoke, there's fire kind of things going on, we think.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. And I feel kind of sorry for it's essentially a non-news story this year, but in its own way, it's been news for the fact that it's so obvious, and yet the official companies involved continue to deny, in spite of the fact that it's an open secret. Even, I'm not sure if I should be saying this, but
go for it, whatever.
Probably won't get back to the Lords and Masters in Japan, but the audio producer who was responsible, well, not the producer, but the special sound effects guy, Hidenori Arai, who's been around since the days of Dragon Ball, basically confirmed in first-hand conversation with K17 when we all went to Tokyo for the recording of the Hokotate Dragon Ball thing, that yes, he has been working on it, but we're not really supposed to talk about it.
Kanzenshuu can confirm this exists. Multiple people on our staff have confirmed that this thing exists, yet no company will come out on record and say it.
Yes.
I love it.
It's very frustrating.
Kai is just the gift that keeps on giving in a way that provides us with basically zero enjoyment for the product itself. It's all the meta surrounding it that makes it wonderful.
Yes. All the machinations with the companies involved and the way they promote it or fail to promote it on both sides of the Pacific, or release anything of value apart from the series itself to capitalize on it. You know, it's just this incredibly interesting and yet also frustrating aspect of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to be a thing even with the lack of an actual release this year. And so that is my number 2. The news and lack thereof about Dragon Ball Kai in 2013.
I love it. Great choice, man. All right, my number 2. And again, I'm going with stuff that just had wonderful personal meaning to me, or I just thought was so outlandish and different from all the other stuff. My number 2 is Akira Toriyama finally, in such a non-Japanese way, directly commenting on Dragon Ball Evolution. Now, Julian, this came from the Battle of Gods theatrical program, and it's kind of this extended version of comments we had gotten before, almost twice before, but these shorter comments were so vague or had such a double meaning to them that it could have felt like the very Japanese, I'm just answering the question, I'm trying to avoid commenting.
Yes, or I'm praising this in such vague terms that...
It may be sarcasm.
Probably not,
but
who knows.
But this was not. So this, again, is coming to us from the Battle of Gods theatrical program, and I'm going to read, there's a long paragraph, there's a short paragraph, and there's a final sentence. I'm going to read that second one, the short paragraph here.
Okay.
By the way, the battle scenes in the second half are particularly overwhelming. I was moved because the presentation exceeded my expectations. While I had expected, quote, it probably won't be any good, end quote, it was greatly different from a certain country's live-action movie, which really was no good. Just as you'd expect, Japan's animation is superb. Everyone on the staff, you really did a good job. Which really was no good.
Yes.
There you go. Now, Julian, the story here, I mean, that's a fun little quote, but it actually had larger repercussions that tie into the greatness that is the whole story behind Battle of Gods. And it seemed to be that Toriyama felt shafted with any input he tried to provide to Dragon Ball Evolution. So when another large scale Dragon Ball production came up, things not quite like the Jump Super Anime Tour special, which he provided the raw idea for, nothing to do with episode of Bardock other than designing Chilled, plan to eradicate the Super Saiyans, zero to do with. This was a large-scale production. He got that pride of the author. Forget the pride of the Saiyans. This is the pride of Toriyama coming in as, I'm the original author. I know these characters. Koyama, step aside. I got this.
Yes. And so it sort of starts way back in 2004, where 2003 and 2004, where he was talking about how he was excited for this idea that it's going to be made into a Hollywood movie, but that he really can't offer much input because the people that he would want to be in it are now too old, and he plans to sit on the sidelines unless it gets just way off base. And apparently it did get way off of what he wanted it to be, and he told them, and they ignored him.
They flat out ignored him. Yep.
It's a Hollywood studio. Once it's in their hands, the original creator, unless they can actively refuse the script, they're meaningless. And he really seemed to dislike his treatment there. And so he talks about it in his interview with the Asahi Shimbun, this is a newspaper in Japan, that he decided to show some spine as a creator and draw the characters and their world as he saw them. And part of this, too, seems to be the original treatment of the story as it came from the scriptwriter Yusuke Watanabe, who is still credited as the scriptwriter, but as we find reading about what Toriyama did, he basically ended up being Toriyama's stenographer / idea bouncer offer. So the original story, Beerus was this incredibly evil character who a lizard character who had the ability to inspire evil in others and was responsible for corrupting the Saiyans, and even was going to cause Joku's friends and allies to become evil, presumably for him to fight against them somehow. Toriyama decided that this was much too dark, and that he would have no part of it, and kind of ended up accidentally rewriting the whole story.
Right. So we've got Watanabe doing this original script. We've got Yamamuro doing some of the original designs. We're talking about a beefy Goku with a cape. Toriyama comes in and says no to pretty much everything except the idea of a god of destruction and Super Saiyan God, which were kind of the basis for a movie at all, and rewrites the whole thing and hands it back and says, all right, here we go from here. And even Super Saiyan God, he designed himself. He wanted the thinner appearance. He wanted the hair to be what it is, the aura to be what it is. That's all Toriyama now.
Yes. And the response, well, of course, the people involved with the movie were enthusiastic, and even Watanabe, despite having his ideas basically brushed aside, was like, hey, this is cool, I'm involved with this.
Well, he's also of basically our generation of Super Dragon Ball fanboy. So to have your ideas tossed out by Toriyama is almost an honor. It's like, oh, it would be such an honor for you to rewrite what I'm doing. Oh, yes. Now I understand. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Toriyama rejected all my ideas. Oh my God. He had an opinion about my ideas. It's very much that sort of almost hero worship. But then you have the scriptwriter for all of the previous Dragon Balls.
I was just going to say,
Takao Koyama, and he was involved with the series for a long time, but he has specific ideas about the characters that are not necessarily how the author thinks of them, but he especially seems incredibly invested in the idea that Broly, his creation, who he reused, is the strongest. Yeah, and he didn't take kindly to much of what he saw as almost Toriyama's interference with his vision.
Right. Like, excuse me, sir, these are not your characters. Yeah, I'm sure he got some kind of feeling of authorship, and that makes sense. I mean, the amount of work Koyama did with the series, not just the movies, but some of the original illustrated stories and various other production stuff. I mean, he was there, but still not your characters.
So in many ways, it almost feels like sort of raised some hackles at Toei Animation. And even Koyama talks about there being some inside stories about things like Fox and things, but that he can't really say.
Right.
Was he approached initially and was either given a pass or specifically rejected by Toriyama. We don't know.
Or just wasn't even approached in the first place.
Yes. Is he bitter about that? We don't know.
Yeah.
But this is very interesting on a number of levels just because of Toriyama's active involvement.
Battle of Gods is not, as an entity, is actually not on my list. This was my number 2 that I'm talking about here.
Oh, okay.
Battle of Gods is just so big that I felt like Toriyama's comment on Battle of Gods gives us such an interesting and rich history to the entire production of the movie that rather than the movie itself, again, I love the stories behind everything. So kind of the story leading into Battle of Gods. That's my number 2. So Julian, with that said, why don't we take it to your number 1 here for 2013?
And it might surprise a few people, but others might nod along and say, yeah, that makes sense. My number 1 for 2013 is, drumroll please. Thank you. Jacko the Galactic Patrolman.
Very nice. I'm not entirely surprised, but I think it's a wonderful choice. Now, Julian, again, going into back history here, Jacko originally intended, quote unquote, to come out alongside Battle of Gods. That didn't happen.
Yes. No, well, Toriyama was working himself too hard and apparently getting only 2 hours of sleep a night, and for someone who's pushing 60,
right?
That wasn't going to fly.
I mean, it put Oda in the hospital this last year, never mind Toriyama.
Yeah. So, it's obvious that he had been working very hard on things. And it's interesting tracing the path of its development because, again, alongside Battle of Gods, you've got this in-depth authorial comments about this series, not only through his weekly comments in the table of contents of Weekly Shonen Jump, but also through these sort of monologues that were released originally through the Jump Live app, which is Shueisha's first real foray into sort of real-time updating and bonus web content.
Sorta. I mean,
reproduced.
Talk about that real quick, because it was so experimental. Like, we're going to do something for a month, and then we're just not going to do anything else.
Yeah. Well, it was this sort of idea of having like a bonus issue of the magazine online that would update with new content every day instead of every week. And they pushed out a lot of different things. They showed parts of the full color manga that were not yet released digitally. They had original series. They had odd little combinations. Like there was this thing called JoJo's Kitchen, which was, I forget, it was the author of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure alongside the author of, I don't remember if it was Toriko or a different series. Maybe, what was it called? Shokugeki no Soma, which is another cooking series. Maybe, yeah. And it's just these odd web videos, and it just kept going like this. And there's, they have free content and paid content. And of course, Toriyama's special comments were part of the paid content, which you get for a one-time pass of 250 yen. But apparently the response, I don't know how popular it was, but the response to the people who used it was so good that they kept updating with other material over the months since August, even though it was only supposed to run for 1 month. And then just this past month, on December 20th, 21st, they did the second stage of Jump Live, and they're continuing with that right now, with more new material, although as of yet there's nothing related to Dragon Ball or Jacko specifically. So, long story short, we got these couple of comments that not only give a glimpse into Toriyama's state of mind, but also the way he works. And then we also had a sort of, I guess you could call it a cool-down interview in the pages of V-Jump after the series finished.
Ah, that's right, more recently.
Where you get Toriyama's comments about the genesis of the series and some of the things that he did in it and why, and also the comments from the other people who are deeply involved with the series, like Toyotaro of the Dragon Ball Heroes Victory Mission manga and V-Jump, and also Naho Oishi working on Dragon Ball SD. So that was interesting in just the way that he was sort of thinking about the mythos and how to tie it into Dragon Ball. And it was very much a sort of, well, it's kind of an afterthought, but hey, this works. And I thought it was interesting that he chose to do that in some way, that originally this was basically just supposed to be a thing that he was working on, but it sort of, the original idea that he had to do a manga was sort of too similar to Battle of Gods, or I guess basically he reused some of his ideas, since, it was him writing the story for that in the end. So he went with this other thing that he intended to be a script, presumably for Masakazu Katsura to actually draw, since he's been working with him in the past.
Well, we talked about this, but there are some tiebacks to other things with galactic patrols and even symbols. Where's all this coming from?
Yeah, which also is some of the other things that he's done with Masakazu Katsura in the past, like Jia and also Sachie Changu. Was it 2008 and then 2009 or 10 respectively? So there's all these little tiebacks to things that he's done in the past, but the main concrete thing is the tie-in to Dragon Ball, which he's sort of nonchalant about, to be honest. But at the same time, so wait, we got an official Dragon Ball prequel in 2013.
I know, right? That's huge.
I mean, it's 18 years after the manga ended. We've got something that's supposed to be in the same universe by the official author. Oh my god. This came out of the blue. We weren't expecting this.
And this is just the whole revelation of it feels so similar to the updated ending of the Kanzenban, which we basically got April Fool's Day 2004. It was, oh my god, Toriyama drew new Dragon Ball. And sure, that was just a little bit of a change to a pre-existing thing, but I don't think we're selling this enough. Toriyama drew a prequel to Dragon Ball. It came out simultaneously in Japanese and in English. This was huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's an understated series that
sure
enjoys its sort of quiet, almost, I wouldn't say pensive because it's not overly deep, but it enjoys that sort of serenity in the composition that Toriyama enjoys building up to some of the punchlines.
Yeah, there's definitely different from Dr. Slump in that way, where there's almost not even jokes, there's just punchlines. But Jocko felt very, very slow in its joke building, and when it paid off, it paid off.
Yeah. So in that respect, I think he expected that not everybody would enjoy it, and judging by the rankings towards the end of the series, it was kind of in the middle. Yeah. Not particularly popular, but not earth-shatteringly horrible in the audience response. But that was okay because it felt almost like he drew it more for himself than anyone. And at his age, it seems to be that's what it needs to take for him to actually be bothered, because he's been
right.
through the ringer of weekly serialization twice for a combined, what was it, basically 15 odd years, which is less than some of the other authors who are more passionate about what they do.
Well, that's the thing. Toriyama was never a passionate author.
Yes, he started as a cartoonist because he quit his job because he was not a morning person and he was broke. But he knew how to draw, so he was going to enter the manga contest for money.
For money, yep.
And then he got scouted by Kazuhiko Torishima, and the rest is history. So yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was out of his element, who was good at what he did, but never really set about intending to be good at what he did. And you know, he was the workhorse of Jump in many ways for years upon years, because even though he was not the only popular series, or popular author, I should say, he was responsible for so much creative output in such a relatively short amount of time that it really feels like they burned him out. And, you know, in that respect, I think he has a right to sort of decide what he wants to do. But the fact that he was so motivated over this past year to do stuff, that's pretty remarkable in itself.
I think that sums it up well. Stay tuned. More Jocko talk this episode. Not right this second, though. Julian, are you ready for my number one story of 2013?
Absolutely.
Do you have, I don't want you to say them, but do you have any thoughts of what my number one might be? I've already said Battle of Gods itself is not my number one. I kind of tied that with my number two.
Does it have anything to do with some of the ancillary material, like guides and stuff?
No, it does not. All right, my number one. It was an experience, and that was Animazement 2013.
Oh, I can definitely see that. You lucky bastard.
Being in the same room, directly speaking to and with Masako Nozawa. Not just her, Toshio Furukawa, Ryusei Nakao, Yuko Minaguchi. What an experience. That was everything about Animazement. You can go back and check out our episode, Mary and I recapping that convention. But the convention itself was fun. Everything about the convention ran wonderfully. Those guests were spectacular. Every single person from the Kanzenshuu community that came was an awesome person. And I loved hanging out and speaking with every single one of you. Everything about Animazement was just Dragon Ball bliss in a 3-day event, and it was so spectacular. You have to go back and check out that podcast episode if you haven't. Animazement 2013 down in North Carolina was a wonderful, wonderful time. I mean, Nakao has been over here before. Furukawa's definitely he's been to Animazement before. I think both of them have been. Midoguchi has been in the US. The whole point of her being in Kai and Battle of God specifically was a news story like, oh, she's coming back. Okay, that's different. And Nozawa, we're pretty sure this was the first time she ever came to a convention in North America. She had been to Europe before, but she had not been to an American convention. To have them there and even having some of the Funimation English dub staff, and I know that Chris Sabat was invited but had already committed to another convention, and my understanding is that he was kicking himself the whole time not being able to be there. I mean, you guys know we are primarily fans of the Japanese version, and not even primarily, basically exclusively. That's what we're into. But having Masako Nozawa and Sean Schemmel next to each other, I was in awe of Schemmel being in awe of Nozawa. That was so wonderful an experience. I don't have enough adjectives and adverbs to properly describe how everything felt that weekend. It was spectacular. That's my number one.
Here I was in Japan, right?
Yep.
Well, I did get to meet the director of the movie and the sound effects guy, so that was kind of cool.
Hokotate, you did that stuff at the tail end of 2012, I think it was. So.
Well, I did do that in 2013, though. It was like February, March.
Oh, going to the screening?
Yeah.
The actual competition?
Recording, yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird, sort of the time frame there. It was right at the beginning of the year.
Right.
And it feels probably earlier than it actually was because of so much that happened in between. Yeah, it didn't air for about a month. But yeah, I just barely missed out on getting to meet Toriyama's third editor, who sort of vanished very soon after the recording. But the sound effects guy stuck around, and the director who was watching the recording sort of came down to chat for a little bit. He asked me if I'd seen the movie yet, and I said no, but I was looking forward to it. It's about all I could spit out, you know.
I know, when you're in the presence of these people, I mean, my conversation with Nozawa was basically just holding this thing out in front of me, like, oh my God, thank you. And it was a little dusty in the room. Not gonna dance around that. It was wow. Just wow. Hearing them tell their stories. And I mean, we've heard these stories a million times. I mean, I could have pre-written Nozawa's responses basically to every question. We've translated things. I was like, yep, we just put up that interview from 15 years ago. It's the exact same answer, almost word for word coming out of her. And she was just like that with everything. And Nakao is the man. He was so personable and friendly and outgoing, and his English was at a level that he could really engage with the audience. He was spectacular. That panel, I think it was the last day of the convention, just set us off to go with such smiles on our faces. Everything was wonderful. Everything was so great. Animazement 2013.
And I think that is a perfect way to end that countdown right there. Yeah. And of course, Battle of Gods was a huge thing this year, but it was kind of so huge that it's impossible to single out one thing to talk about.
Yeah.
It was sort of something that we survived more than anything else because of the news deluge.
So true. So true. Bumper sticker, I survived Battle of Gods.
I mean, we've always talked about how if there was going to be a new series or a new movie, there would be tons of promotion for it in all forms of media in Japan.
You would know.
There would be a build-up in terms of merchandise and tie-ins and everything else, and then there would be the release of it itself. In short, if there was something, you would know. And, oh, did we ever know more than we really wanted to.
Holy cow, you knew.
Oh, I mean, I was getting negative sleep on occasion there.
It's true. However that works, you were doing that.
I'm reminded of something that we've kind of put on the site but not linked to yet, which is comments that he had from Dragon Ball Landmark, the Kanzenban manga guide.
Yeah.
That he was talking about getting like 20 minutes of sleep in 6 days while working on Dr. Slump.
Right.
And I thought, Yeah, I kind of know how that feels now.
All right, Julian, and I just forwarded you all the notes here, so log into your email account. We are now going to turn things over to the predictions we made pretty much 1 year ago. I think 1 year and 1 week ago, something like January 6th, we put out the podcast back in 2013. So, Julian, because there's two of us and we have 4 sets of predictions, we have a good breakdown. We will take each other's so we can directly comment on each other's stuff, and then we'll break down Mary's and Heath's predictions here. I got you first on the list, so while you load up your email, I'm going to go through your predictions. You said, Battle of Gods will come, Battle of Gods will go. And depending on its success, we may see more theatrical films in coming years, but you said, not sure if it will get a huge groundswell of popularity, will be a wait and see kind of thing. This is the most non-committal nothing statement that you are so famous for.
Well, I'm right about the first point, and we can't really say about the next point since it's not the coming years technically just yet. But I think it did get a fair amount of popularity, and it did stay at number 1 for a while before getting, kicked out by other animation that was closer. And it was not the highest grossing film of the year. I can't remember which had that honor, but it did well, and it did about what they were hoping it would. So
we'll have more on numbers, so hold off on that. Let's keep going here. You said we will get some sort of announcement in the US and other international areas and home releases announced. Well, we've got nothing in North America, but internationally, it's definitely moving along.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it feels like everywhere but the English-speaking world. I mean, Australia even had a screening of the movie, but not a home release yet, obviously.
Well, they have it licensed. Madman has licensed Battle of Gods, but we don't know anything coming for that. And that's the whole thing where it's like, well, Madman's not really put it in video game terms, like a developer. It's not like they're going to dub it, which means they're going to take someone else's dub or a sub-only release. Does that mean that there is something in works from Funimation that they just can't talk about yet? So, but again, we have a lot more to get into here. Let me keep going, and we'll keep commenting on things. Julian, you said we will see more arcs re-released in full color of the manga besides the Saiyan and Frieza arcs, and depending on how successful it is, we may see the rest of the manga. Now, real quick, what is going on with the full color comics in Japan, digital versus print?
Well, the entire series has been released digitally, and in print, only the Saiyan and Frieza arcs thus far. We have not heard anything except for the original things they were talking about before the full color comics came out, which is that they intend eventually to get to the end of Z, and for now that Dragon Ball, or the Dragon Ball part, will only be
digital only.
Digital, but we haven't heard anything since then. Yeah, so that's available digitally. Everything from the very beginning of the series, Goku is a boy, all the way to the end of the Buu arc is available digitally, and it's very clear that it's based on the Kanzenban version of the manga because it has the same alterations. And it also has the same, we can call them mistakes or oversights as well.
And it has the updated Kanzenban ending?
That's correct. At this point, it's unclear what the print version is going to do. In retrospect, it almost feels like we got unexpected stuff in print, like the animation comics for the movie, and also the re-release of the movie 8 animation comic. And I suppose in terms of something in Weekly Jump, Jocko also counts.
You said that according to my calculations, not your own, the Kanzenshuu would not have an illustration collection. You were correct,
right,
sir. However,
yes,
we got it.
Yes, we got it as the Chogashu, a separate volume, not technically a part of the series, presumably so people can just buy that and not feel guilty about getting the other volumes. Yeah.
Again, one of the best things that came out. Tying in with some of the stuff you were talking about earlier, at some point, Kai will make its way back to Japan with the Buu arc, but may not be on TV at all. Just a home or a rental release with a special promotion or something. And if it does air on TV, it would not be done via traditional Fuji TV broadcast style. Again, the news that continues to be not news.
It's amazing just how much everybody knows that this is a thing, and yet they continue not to say anything about it.
All right, you had two last things that were Battle of Gods related. You said you will go see it with your collaboration ticket. Well, you did that.
Yes, I did.
And then finally, you said there would be a novelization of Battle of Gods. Now, we're not talking about an anime manga here or an anime film comics. You were talking, you said last year that One Piece has gotten this kind of stuff where it's basically prose of the movie.
Yes, but this did not materialize.
Those were your predictions. You did semi-okay there. Why don't you take it here to Mary's predictions?
So Mary's first prediction is that we are not going, or Funimation is not going to release the Jump Super Anime Tour special here in the US. Sick of getting let down year after year. Well, Mary, prepared to be let down another year because your prediction was correct. But there's always hope, and that hope springs eternal. But if Battle of Gods receives the same kind of home release in North America as it did in Japan, then there might be a special edition with the Super Anime Tour special on a bonus disc. But that, of course, assumes that the movie gets a release in North America to begin with, which is not set.
So far, not a thing, right?
They will announce a new video game that ties directly in with the movie. We'll have the new characters with a new story mode that specifically ties into them. Well, there is Battle of Z, which does have Super Saiyan God Goku and Beerus, God of Destruction.
And Whis. Whis is actually playable in that game, too.
So, but does the story mode specifically cover that?
Well, the story mode is the same kind of thing where it's Saiyan arc, Frieza arc, and then special. It is going to have some Battle of Gods side story thing in there. So it's not built around Battle of Gods specifically, but that's definitely how they're advertising the game. Beerus and Super Saiyan God Goku front and center there.
So in other words, as a tie-in, I guess we can say that Mary was absolutely correct.
And let's not forget that Zenkai Battle Royale also got Super Saiyan God Goku as well as Beerus playable there. It's an arcade game, so there's not really a story to tie into it, sort of, kind of, but they're there, so good job.
So her next is agreed on the Kanzenshuu. That is
just
that
the details
there will
about
not be an art collection, and
the
yes,
count
that was true.
7,
but then we got the
8-ish
Chogashu
down to 4.
So that was true. She got that right, although we did get the Chogashu, so we were all happy to be, well, not proven wrong, but to get what we wanted anyway.
Partially ignorantly wrong.
Well, they did it a little bit sneakily because it wasn't technically a part of the series, but they did release something.
Right.
And her next prediction, the US will get anything about the continuation of Kai before Japan. Well, we don't know.
We still have nothing. I think that's probably still a fair prediction, but we're not there yet.
Okay, and finally, she said the movie, that is Battle of Gods, will see moderate success. The One Piece movie was huge, but it won't come to that level. Half as successful. Well, half as successful is pretty close. I think the One Piece film Z did about $67 million US, whereas Dragon Ball did about 30 million.
Right. So, I got more numbers on that, so stay tuned there.
Yeah, so that was, it's fairly accurate. Moderate success, if you can characterize it as that. Certainly, it seemed to get a lot of good word of mouth, although some fans were divided on the way that it treats certain traditional elements of Dragon Ball movies.
Right.
But certainly a lot of people went out to see it, even if it wasn't as big as the darling of Toei and Shueisha, which is One Piece.
And I think the success could have been even bigger if everyone would please just jump into the current century and realize we live in a global economy. Dragon Ball is a global evergreen franchise. There is zero reason. I don't care what your business reasons are. I don't care what your pre-existing legal arrangements and agreements are. This movie should have been day and date global.
Yeah. I mean, considering the amount of piracy that there has been since the release of the DVD and the Blu-ray, I mean, they were pretty good at keeping a seal on things as long as it was not yet released for the home market. But
right, yeah.
There is clearly some heavy demand for this film, and yet they're dragging their feet in the official realm. I don't know which company is responsible. We kind of think it's probably Fox.
Right.
Because they have a hand in releases in the US because of agreements relating to Dragon Ball Evolution.
And Julian, you know what? If you want to be completely legal about it, you can buy a $20 free shipped English subtitled Blu-ray from Hong Kong.
Yes.
And the subtitles, yes, there's some wonkiness. It is no more or less wonky than the fan subs that I have examined.
The translation is fine. It's an official release, licensed in Hong Kong. I mean, obviously, it's not the North American release, and you're going to get some Chinese text that, well, if you don't understand it, that's your problem because you bought a Chinese DVD. But, it's an official release that you will obtain legally and you'll be able to see what you wanted with subtitles.
Man, Heath did really, really well here. He's got a lot. He said Zenkai Battle Royale because this is the first time Heath joined the show proper for a predictions episode. Zenkai Battle Royale is announced for home release in 2014 on the PS3, announced at the end of 2013. Because the rest of us had been saying that for years, and much like the JSAT special, we kind of gave up on predicting a home release of Zenkai Battle Royale. This did not happen, and instead we have Battle of Z. Heath said that the Majin Buu arc of Kai begins popping up internationally on TV, quickly followed by home releases. The release in Japan is for a digital tier channel, maybe home release, but no hopes for that. Again, Kai, lols. Next up from Heath, Shueisha continues to release full-color manga beyond the Frieza arc. Not entirely sure how, but we'll go back to the original Dragon Ball as well. He is correct with the asterisk that all of this is digital only.
Yes. So as for a print release, we have no idea. But yes, he is correct in as far as that the entire series has been released digitally through multiple outlets. The only question is, can we get books too?
Next up, 100% correct. Viz picks up the full color re-release, but for digital format only. That is what has happened. They have been including that in their weekly Shonen Jump. Although now in 2014, we are due out relatively soon. Viz is doing a print edition of it. And then the question that comes up next is, well, is Viz going to do print further than Shueisha did print? Will they continue to the Cell arc after that? So we will see there, but so far Heath has been correct. Heath said Battle of Gods will debut in some international theaters, but not in the US. Again, 100% correct. We had lots of Latin American screenings. We had Hong Kong. We had, Australia. It was everywhere.
Yes. Oh, but he didn't do so well with this next one.
No. Heath said that Battle of Gods is announced for international release, but there will be none until 2014. We got one slipped right in there at the end. Actually, two. The Hong Kong release, and then what was the other one that just recently came out? Was it the Chinese proper release somewhere? I think it was the Taiwanese release.
Because China, you have to clear hurdles with the censors and their quotas on foreign properties and things like that. But with Taiwan, it's generally, it's the capitalist market. It's whatever sells. So if it's in that area, it might be Taiwan or perhaps Korea. I don't remember about Korea.
Battle of Gods Taiwanese home release coming January 2014. So it's not out yet. Or it might be out right this second. But it was Taiwan and not quite.
Okay. So we did get home release for Hong Kong, so in that respect he was wrong. And also I think you forgot the Kanzenshuu one for...
Oh, I did skip over one. Kanzenshuu, essentially a carbon copy of the Daizenshuu, with additional info about Battle of Gods at the very end. We started getting additional Battle of Gods info with the very first Kanzenshuu, believe it or not, but it was very brief teases. And this is the first place we heard about the multiple universes and the... the long string of digits for what planet Earth is, that kind of stuff.
And in spite of the fact that it was very much mostly repurposed Daizenshuu content with a few things left out here and there was some actual new material, and I was surprised at particularly the way they incorporated it into the 4th volume, that they really went back.
They did.
Kind of because they were forced to, that they really revised a lot of their information. There were a few errors that slipped by, like the unrevised date for Bra's birth in her biography. But, overall, that's a massive revamp of the books. And so while the first 3 were very much, okay, this is the stuff that's already been released, enjoy it. We really got sort of a treat with the 4th one, especially with the 2 back-to-back interviews of both Masako Nozawa and Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, we're talking about new encyclopedic material, new interview material, new pictures, all good stuff.
Yeah, so in that respect, it started out very much the way that he thought, but the way it continued on, it actually had a few surprises in store. So
yeah, in some respect, he was right. At the very end, we did get more stuff, but we got new stuff trickling for the first 3. All right, we'll move on here. He said no movies announced in 2013 to avoid oversaturation. I think that's totally fair. That didn't happen. The next movie, Heath believes there will be one, won't come out until 2015, 2016. Well, that doesn't really help us for this year. He said Funimation actors will be contracted to do the voices, but Fox is in primary control. Well, we don't know yet, but seems very likely. Heath said he was speaking more about the North American release. The Jump Super Anime Tour special, finally announced for release in collaboration with Battle of Gods, says a good chance because both things happen in the same time frame. Well, we don't have a North American release confirmed, but exactly what he said here happened in Japan.
Yes, so there's that.
So I'm gonna give him 25% here.
Okay. The context is the key there, right?
Yep. Heath said the Funimation will release a new movie pack. There was something that slipped out, I think, first in Canadian retailers that was 1 through 13 of the DBZ movies. And I think it ended up getting a SKU for North America. I don't think we really reported on this, but something did slip out into the retail channels from Funimation like that. Here we go, Heath. Sorry, dude. Funimation readdresses the Blu-ray level sets, say we have no plans to continue. Instead, they're going to focus on, they have the Boo Kai arc, and they're going to focus on that. They have it.
Plan B. Plan
Well,
C? D? I don't remember.
Plan F?
For failure? Well,
you know where we stand with that. And then he said to Funimation, they'll have no plans for more Dragon Boxes. But hey, look over there. Kai in Battle of Gods. Well,
well, we're kind of assuming that they probably don't have plans for Dragon Boxes, but also they don't seem to have the Boo Arc of Kai or Battle of Gods yet. Well, maybe they do have Boo Arc of Kai, but they're not allowed to say, judging by what their employees have said.
I mean, everything that he's saying here was perfectly safe and reasonable and very logical.
At the end of 2012, but 2013 was nuts.
All right.
Mondo nuts.
So that was Julian, that was Mary, that was Heath. We're on to my predictions from last year. Julian, ream me out.
Okay. So, for starters, Mike, you said Dragon Ball Heroes Ultimate Mission due out on the 3DS in February. An updated version is announced for an early 2014 release. Ultimate Mission Plus with no downloadable content. It's just a reissue with extra Galaxy Mission stuff. Well, the Ultimate Mission craziness, it had a very extremely long tail, but
wow.
So far we've had no indication that there will be a sequel.
No, and you know what? Spoiler, this is still my prediction. I think this is my prediction for the next year. I think this is what they're going to do. I think the long tail surprised them too. And this makes a lot of sense for them to do. No, this did not happen. Ultimate Mission went for weeks and weeks and months. It dipped away. Then it came back stronger and kept going for a while. But I was wrong here.
Yes. So not yet anyway. We'll see what happens. The 3DS seems like its lifespan will still be out for a couple more years. Seems to be getting a more robust games library. Certainly doing better than the Wii U. You said Project Versus J will come out without region locking, much to everyone's relief, about the same quality as Battle Stadium DON. We don't... It hasn't come out yet. Do we know about the region locking?
We do not yet. I mean, there's only been a couple that have ever done it. It's probably not going to happen. But yeah, Project Versus J, we now know is J-Star's Victory Versus. That's due out in March. So the fact that we knew about this game for such a long period of time is very different for Japan.
Yeah, they've been sort of trickling out information over the months upon months. So we know basically all the characters that are going to appear in it, we think.
I mean, they just announced Seiya and someone else a week or so ago. So there's still room to breathe, I'm hoping.
Yeah, so a lot going on here.
We don't know about the quality of the game yet, so Julian, keep me going here.
Okay, so next up we've got a sparking HD collection will be announced / released, and that and Project Versus J is all you'll see for current gen. A new game will be announced for next gen for early 2014. Here's Goku and Vegeta. Here's a new visual style. Look forward to it.
I don't know why I said this, because this makes no sense. I was recently talking about this in a forum thread. The install base, I mean, toss out the 360 in Japan, totally irrelevant, much bigger internationally, but the install base for that generation, the PS3 and the 360, so huge. And with the sales of Dragon Ball games tanking / dwindling, it makes zero sense for them to invest in a new game on new consoles. The PS4 isn't even out yet in Japan. And of course, we didn't know that at the time that the PS4 was going to release in North America before Japan. So that may have been safer a year ago to say. No, I'm shocked that I said this with the knowledge that I have of the industry that I would say this. I must have been drunk, which is very likely on this show.
We'll assume, yeah. You said, no home port of Zenkai Battle Royale. Want it? Keep predicting it. Gonna drop the ball on this one. Yep,
there we go.
Home port. Yes.
Glad I was right.
So, next up, colored manga will not go beyond the currently announced Saiyan and Frieza arc. We'll put it out, and people will say, yep, that's sure colored manga. And you really like Heath's idea of Viz doing it digitally. Were you talking about print specifically, or...
Yeah, I think I was. I don't think we really had a concept of what they were going to do for a digital strategy, so I was pretty much right here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly digitally they did it all in Japan. Mm-hmm. And we don't know what Viz is doing exactly digitally either. From the sound of it, they may be replacing the full-colored manga after the Scion arc finishes in their weekly Shonen Jump.
I mean, Julian, it has been the last thing, and this is typically how Shueisha has always arranged Shonen Jump in Japan. The stuff towards the back is the least popular. Scion arc has been the last thing.
Well, it's also because it's not part of the weekly Shonen Jump in Japan. That could have something to do with it. I don't know how much popularity polls in the English edition affect how they're ordered. Obviously, a series is not going to get canceled basically based on how well it does in an overseas version of the magazine, at least not at this point. Perhaps sometime in the future.
But Viz can decide to no longer publish it in their version, that's for sure.
That's true, because who's going to translate it if nobody wants to read it? But yes, so there's that. I mean, it's in color. Yep, that's a thing.
I think we all said that. Yep, it sure is color manga.
Next up, you said the Chozenshu will be a re-release of the Daizenshu based on the titles and numbers.
Yeah, you all stole everything I was saying about it before I got a chance to get to it, so really you left me with nothing.
Well, you were right.
But we've already talked about all the extra stuff. All right, so then I moved to a little bit of Battle of Gods stuff. So why don't you tell me? And I have a weird number in here. I don't know why I said it, and we'll have to break this down, but go ahead.
So you will say Battle of Gods will do well, but not set Japan on fire. Opening weekend will do 500 billion yen, which is half that of what Strong World did. Not even Film Z.
Now,
500, I think you said 500 million.
I literally said 500 billion. I'm pretty sure that's what I said. But yeah, I definitely meant 500 million yen, because those are two very different numbers. And Julian, here's the thing. We didn't get 1 day figures, but we did get 2 day figures of 680 million yen.
Yeah, which is respectable, certainly.
Yeah. Mary said early in her predictions that she think it was going to be half of One Piece. And that's how I was coming up with these numbers too. So that's what I was shooting for. And seems like Battle of Gods was about half that of a One Piece movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty accurate an assessment. I mean, One Piece is current, it's ongoing. Both of those films had huge involvement from the original creator, which it shares that quality with Battle of Gods. And there were also tie-in things that had a direct impact on, I guess you could say, the original work in the form of these extra manga drawn by the author himself, which is a bit more than you could say for Battle of Gods, since obviously the manga's already written.
Yeah, long since over. Yep.
But it still did very well, and I think, it was not a gigantic, huge sensation, but people were like, yeah, this is good, we like it. And in that respect, I think it helped do some of the things that Toei tried, perhaps not always successfully, with Kai. And I could say that I think it would make future things more likely. But you were right. You were very right with this prediction. It was a little bit more than you actually thought, but, it was about right. Anyway, the movie, you said the movie will be a tie-in, or it will tie in a bit with the super exciting guide material, but not as much as we were hoping for. We are going to hear Makaioshin, but that's the extent we're going to get. Standard ending with Goku winning.
I was wrong on all fronts.
Yes. So we did not get much of a tie-in with the super exciting guides. We did not hear Makaioshin, and Goku lost. I'm
excited about that part. I'm glad I was wrong about that part. I'm glad the movie shook things up. I'm still a little upset that all that information that Toriyama was tossing out there, and it felt like we heard more and more of it leading up to Battle of Gods, and they did nothing with it.
Well, it kind of feels like he had these things in his head that he never got around to using. It seemed a little bit too planned out for him to just be tossing off the top of his head like, yeah, sure, whatever. But at the same time, it feels kind of like, well, I thought of it this way, but I never really intended it to use it in the story proper.
So if it appears like it's a plan, it's probably nothing.
Yeah, basically.
All right, I had a couple of very last things here.
Yes, so you said, we will hear that Funimation is the primary co-producer on, which I think is the Buu arc of Kai, which is what you meant.
Right.
We don't know.
Nothing yet.
And finally, I'm assuming you're also talking about the Buu arc of Kai, but new TV episodes in spring, home release later in the year. No, we don't know.
Well, I did not so wonderful. You did, well, say virtually nothing and be right about it.
Yes. Well, I'm almost surprised at the things that none of us predicted, which was, for example, new Toriyama manga. Yeah. And just the sheer amount of Toriyama interviews. They must have like taken him around a circuit almost. Like,
that's true.
Yes, you talk to these people, you talk to these people, you talk to these people.
I mean, we even this episode we talked about you're going to know when something is new. I don't think we fully knew what to expect.
Now that we know what it entails, do we really want to do it again?
All right, man. So those were our predictions last year for this year. We're going to start cruising along here. We're going to make some new predictions for the next year and then real quickly get some of your folks' predictions from Twitter. Julian, why don't you get us started here? What do you see happening in calendar year 2014 for the Dragon Ball franchise?
First, maybe... No, I won't say maybe. I will go on a limb and say we will get the Buu Arc of Kai, and contrary to what it was originally intended to be, it will get a release on TV in Japan.
Okay.
It will take over Toriko's time slot, let's say April-ish, and it will reunite the Dream 9
the original, yeah,
block with One Piece and Dragon Ball. I hope, I'm not going to say this is definite because Toei has proved us wrong in the past, that they will capitalize on this to put out something worthwhile for people to buy that's not just the TV show on DVD and Blu-ray again, because people have seen the TV show already as both Z and Kai. So, next up, Jaco the Galactic Patrolman will be re-released, or not re-released, it will be released for the first time in tankobon format and also digitally as the first phase in the 30th anniversary project for Dragon Ball. Year 2014 is 30 years after 1984, and of course Dragon Ball debuted in November 1984. So, this will definitely tie into the 30th anniversary of Dragon Ball, and I'm going to say there's going to be new material in it, but it might amount to just a couple of illustrations or perhaps a new interview and not something hugely earth-shattering. I will say that they may have a colorized version available digitally. I'm going to say we are going to see something else for the 30th anniversary of the series. I'd like to say that there will be a new movie announced, but I'm not sure that will be that lucky. I think they will continue to milk it in promotions of Psycho Jump, Dragon Ball Z, and the GT. And of course, we already know that there is going to bring us some form of episode of Bardock with material of some kind we're not sure about yet. I'm also going to say they're going to release more stuff, like the movie anime comics. And finally, Funimation will announce Battle of Gods for the North American market. Fox is probably going to be the main producer, but Funimation will have a say in it because they will be the ones actually doing the recording. And we don't know about home release. I'm going to assume that they're going to try for at least a limited theatrical thing, because they've tried that in the past. I just feel like 2013 was in some ways a predictable and yet completely unpredictable year.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to say that Shueisha is probably going to release more of the full-color comics, and they will use the 30th anniversary as a way to have that as a tie-in. So that is my prediction, but we will probably not see the earlier arcs of the series in keeping with their original assessment that they were going to keep it digital only for now, the early arcs of the series, that is.
Gotcha.
So I guess that basically covers my predictions. I don't really do video games because it's not my thing.
Right. I got you covered there. That's fine. All right. So my predictions. So we're talking about full color, Viz, Weekly Shonen Jump, things going to be taken out. I think Viz will stick with it through the Frieza arc in the English Weekly Shonen Jump. I don't think the physical release will get that far over the calendar year of 2014, so I am safe and I don't have to make a prediction about the print edition beyond that.
Okay.
I said this earlier, I still think we're going to get an updated Ultimate Mission, Dragon Ball Heroes Ultimate Mission on 3DS. Seemed like it did pretty darn well for them. Unexpected on our side, a little bit unexpected on the Namco Bandai side. And I think it makes sense. We've had so many more things. The first Ultimate Mission only went up through about Galaxy Mission 6-ish, or maybe 4-ish, between 4 and 6, and it tied in a little Battle of Gods stuff. So there's the entire rest of the Galaxy Missions, and now we're into the Evil Dragons arc of Dragon Ball Heroes, this new chapter. So there's a lot new stuff for them to cover. I think that makes perfect financial sense for them. I do think we are it was a safe prediction last year, but it makes sense giving a little time in between them. I think this is the year we see a Sparking HD collection. And I think what we will see will be Sparking Neo and Sparking Meteor, Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Budokai Tenkaichi 3. They will leave off the first game. If the Budokai HD collection was any indication, they chop off the one that brought the least to the table, although I would disagree about Budokai 2 in the board game. But Budokai 1 was the story mode and the cinematics, Budokai 3 just being the good game of the bunch there. Of course, Infinite World left off there and Super DBZ left off. But for the Sparking collection, people love the story mode in Neo and people love the selection of characters in Meteor. I think that is where they will go with that. I think Funimation will just carry on with the Blu-rays. It's going to be a pretty quiet year on the DBZ front. I don't think this one's going to get canceled. I think this is the one we're stuck with.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I think. All right, guys, for serious. We're definitely, absolutely, finally going to hear about the Boo Arc of Kai in 2014. We already have a little bit of hints from Madman, I think, out there that, yep, something's coming in 2014. Seriously, I mean, we were already saying it last year. If they don't do it in 2013, is it even going to matter anymore? If they don't do it in 2014, no, it does not matter anymore. You're already past the point of caring. I mean, Kai started in 2009.
Yep, 5 years ago, almost.
Funimation will announce they have Battle of Gods, but it'll be pretty late in the year. Now, if you look at it from the One Piece side of things, and when Strong World was announced for an international release from Funimation versus its Japanese release. And One Piece is a little different because it's not like Funimation has released all of One Piece. It's the situation with Strong World, where it fits in the series, where it fits in with the completeness of a series. Very different from Dragon Ball with its constant re-releases. The whole thing is out there, and where Battle of Gods fits in. But we can see it does take time for these production committees to start licensing things out to the North American side. But again, they have to do it this year. They have to start announcing this soon because, I mean, it's already done in terms of piracy. I mean, they lost that battle immediately on what, September
13th?
13th, something like that. Yeah, I mean, it was out that day. And you can buy an English subtitled official Blu-ray release from Hong Kong for less than the cost of what Funimation's will probably come out as MSRP. They have to win folks back. And they have a chance to do it. For the people that are super, super casual about it, know it exists, but don't know how to go about it. I mean, Dragon Ball is the type of franchise where it is super mainstream, super casual. There are hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of fans who do not live on the internet and do not live on the Pirate Bay that could figure it out if they wanted to, but they would rather just, here's $20, just give it to me. And I think they need to go after that audience this year.
Right, but those are the same people who don't understand what Kai is in the first place.
Well, that's true. Talk extensively about the lack of communication there.
Yes.
Tied in with Battle of Gods, I think there will be more riots over Beerus's name.
I think people will just start using the spelling that they started using in Battle of Z, and people will even forget there was something before that. Although it will make people very, I'm going to say it's going to make it very difficult to search for information about when things were happening because people couldn't decide on the romanization. People will look for Beerus and they won't be able to find anything from before, say, February 2013.
Mm-hmm. Julian, do you think you are single-handedly responsible for it?
I'd like to think so, and certainly it seems to have had an effect. I don't like to toot my own horn too much, but I do think I'm single-handedly responsible for most of the English translations of all the information about the film that's come out
absolutely
to the fans, which gets sort of permutated through other websites who try to pass things off as their own or just can't read.
It's more they can't read. All right, let's move on though, Julian. I'm giving you some significant stuff here.
Okay.
We are going to get a Dragon Ball Heroes, I don't know if you call it an OVA, a movie hero special, and it's going to be about Gotenks and Beat. We're going to get that this year. Now, the question is when. I'm thinking about, all right, Jump Festa. Well, we just had a Jump Festa. So if it's a Jump Festa thing, it's not for a full year, basically, at this point, into November, December. So is there anything earlier than that could tie in? There's a V-Jump, Psycho Jump festival at some point during the year, isn't there?
Usually July-ish, yeah.
Oh,
They've been holding that since 2012. Yeah, right. It could work there. It could be almost testing the waters for something more, but...
Yep, I don't think they have the spine to do a full Dragon Ball Heroes new TV series. So I think this is the way they're going to do it. Finally going to get some new animation on the hero side of things other than just
TV commercials.
Commercials and PVs and stuff. I have two last things here. You know what? I'm going to go with the one I was kind of saving for the end. But this ties in with Heroes. Julian, I joked about it weeks ago. We were quasi-hesitant to say it earlier this episode. Tied in with the new news of Bardock. Julian, my sad prediction is that they will be writing Bardock as the original Super Saiyan God.
You know, as sad as it is, it seems entirely likely.
I think that's where we're heading. I think we're going to know really soon, too. And if you listen to this episode in a bubble, that sounds like a really safe prediction, but I've been saying this for months now. I've been joking about it, but I'm also like half afraid that I'm right. And oh God, I think we're going there.
We shall see.
Yep. And then I'll wrap it up. You were talking about Jocko. I think Jocko, the home release, will finally come out and it will have additional new material, even further tying it in with Dragon Ball. I think that's what the eventual release will have in it.
Perhaps it's a hint that about what he didn't want to constrain himself by saying what Tights' fate was in his interview in V-Jump.
Yeah.
Perhaps we will finally find out about certain things, but who knows?
Who knows? All right, we are going to wrap things up. I'm just going to rattle off a couple predictions we got on Twitter. And Julian, I want just real quick kind of knee-jerk reactions to some of this stuff, all right?
Okay.
Russell says, Dragon Ball Pinball for the Xbox One.
Sure, why not?
All right. Antonio says, the episode of Bardock will continue, and he will be the original Super Saiyan God. So I think this was right as the Psycho Jump stuff was coming out. So we're on the right page.
Pretty much, yeah.
Russell again says, episode of Broly. We get to really see how he grew up to be such a jerk.
Oh, God, no.
Frankie says, Battle of Gods announcement for US/other European releases. Kai dub premieres spring 14. Late 2014 announcement for a new movie. Well, Bukai anyway, but that was pretty much implied. Maybe a 3DS game that's not Heroes. A lot of stuff there.
Yeah, how do I pick that apart? We hope that Battle of Gods gets a North American release, and Bukai, April 2014, maybe in Japan, we shall see. Who knows? Other stuff, I don't know.
Jump around here. Ash, Dragon Ball Z Kai will air sometime in 2014. We might get an English announcement for Battle of Gods. People being kind of on the fence here. Games for the Xbox One/PS4.
Sure, why not?
John says, a brand new romantic comedy series starring Gohan/Videl as Great Saiyaman 1 and 2 in the style of Lois and Clark Superman.
I'd watch it.
I sure would too. Blake, another DBZ game, HD collection. As long as one of the games is Budokai Tenkaichi 3, then I don't care what the others are. I predicted it. I predicted it last year. I'm predicting the same thing.
Okay, there you go.
I get a lot of the same things, lots of Bukai things. Let's see, Thunder PX here. Funimation cancels Blu-rays again to include Japanese broadcast audio. The video becomes black and white due to bitrate issues.
Oh dear.
We're going to get some more tongue-in-cheek responses. Jay says, Funimation renews their license. The new one includes all specials since JSAT, but not Battle of Gods. Now, the thing is, we know Funimation's current license goes through 2015. They're going to need to relicense things, but that's more, from what I understand, it's more of an all-encompassing franchise IP license. Things like those specials, especially with their production committees, those would have to be licensed individually. I don't think those are going to come under a blanket license.
Yeah, I mean, the licensing issues with that could be kind of hairy because the plan to eradicate the Super Saiyans is the video game only thing, and then the Jump Super Anime Tour special is Shueisha, and yeah.
QB here says, Bukai ends with Kanzenban ending. I think we're going to get a totally new animation there. Jocko mini animated series, Funimation Blu-ray Season 3 never sees the light of day.
You know, I completely forgot about the idea that Jocko could get animation.
Yeah, I don't think it will.
You're probably right. I could see it getting like an OVA or something.
I don't think it will. I think I said this before, but everything that Jocko set out to do, it accomplishes in the manga. I don't think it would benefit in any way from being transferred to animation.
How about a cameo of some sort?
I would love that. I want Jocko in Dragon Ball Heroes at the very least.
There you go.
All right, moving on. Saiyajin Slayer Blu-ray remaster for GT announced late 2014. It will be 4x3. Possible?
Sure. I think. Well, we've talked about this before, but the other series that Funimation has kind of they can't do other than 4x3 because of the nature of their masters
Right, as
for
far
the
as we
other
know,
series.
they have digibetas of those, and it's only Z TV series that they have a film master of. This is as far as we know. So
4x3 would be the ideal, though.
Justin says, DBZ Blu-ray season set canceled in favor of 4K remaster.
Oh, but it would be funny.
Yeah, it would be funny. Let's see, your buddy Albert. I'm predicting an episode of Kanzenshuu celebrating 30 years of Dragon Ball. That is a safe prediction.
Yes.
Let's see, Alex from the UK. There will be a new Wii U/3DS game, and Raditz/Nappa will get a new Super Saiyan and something/new form. Are we finally going to see that golden mustache?
One can only hope.
All right, a couple last things here. Wesley, at this point, I'm predicting another break for Dragon Ball in 2014. That movie stuff must have totally worn out that creative team. Here's hoping, man.
Well, at least on the anime side of things, I think. But
Yep.
certainly the 30th anniversary is only getting started, so we'll see where it leads us.
All right, here's our last one. Joe, buddy Tanuki. I don't even have a 2014 prediction for Kanzenshuu. Shit's been so crazy, it seems anything is possible.
Pretty much, yeah.
That is completely fair and completely accurate.
Pretty much. So I think that basically covers our predictions for the franchise itself for 2014. Any idea about Kanzenshuu itself, where we've been, where we're going? I think we've talked about some of these things over the past year.
We have. I know Heath and I recently did the State of Kanzenshuu podcast. Wiki is currently looking at an early 2014 release. I'd like to get you back on the news bandwagon with me to catch up on a bunch of stuff. You have tons of translations you're moving forward with and jumping back into. I have reviews that I'm half sitting on and half need to write. I've been rereading my Jocko review, which is, I mean, there's no schedule, there's no late at Kanzenshuu considering Dragon Ball's age, but I want to get that out the door. And I got video games coming that really needs to be timely. So shit gonna be crazy for at least a few months here.
And I think it may even get crazier. We certainly probably won't see something like we had last year with the just constant non-stop updates about everything, but there will be enough to keep us at least moderately occupied.
Man, it is late for you right now, and
oh, yes.
I'm going to move on with my day. I am off to go beat A Link Between Worlds today. I'm very excited to wrap that up.
Cool.
You have a holiday.
Yes, it is Coming of Age Day, so all people who turned 20 in the past year get to celebrate.
Oh, fun.
Or is it turn 20 this year? Anyway.
So it means you get to sleep in.
I hope. It depends on my children.
Right, I understand. So I'm going to let you get to sleep, and we're both going to move on with our day. I'm sorry we couldn't get the entire staff together, but as I'm looking at my raw recording, we're coming up on an hour 45 here, and some of that was bullshit and that kind of thing. But,
yeah.
This was a long one, and this one's probably not going to come out Monday. Give me some time to edit this one, folks. It's been 2013, such a great year, a really horrible year in other respects. I am looking forward to 2014 to kind of be yet another fresh step for life, a fresh step for Dragon Ball into our next phase of existence here, if that makes any sense.
Yes. I have to say it was a banner year for the site. We really, I think, obviously there were things that slipped through the cracks just because of the sheer volume, but we really managed to pull through and give people the coverage that they wanted.
And on that note, I hate to toss it out there. If you love what you've seen, if you're even the least bit remotely impressed with what you've seen, this is not our job. We do this in what minor spare time the four of us can scramble together. And it's really expensive just to keep, I say this, to keep the lights on. I literally mean just paying the monthly hosting bill. If you want to send any New Year cheer our way, it is appreciated. Head on over to the donate page. That does not pay for anything other right now than simply having the site online.
Yeah. I mean, we love what we do. We want to continue providing original content and translations and up-to-date news to everyone.
You can help.
Yes.
That's how you can help. Julian, go to bed.
Okay.
So this was episode 353 of our podcast here at Kanzenshuu. www.kanzenshuu.com. We got the Twitter, we got the Facebook, we got the Google+. Tumblr needs some new cat pictures, so I'll work on that. Julian, wrap it up.
Thank you for listening to this New Year Predictions episode of Kanzenshuu the podcast. Stick with us throughout 2014 as we cover the 30th anniversary of the franchise. It could be interesting.
Bye.